Hello, my name's Artemis, and I got to thinking about certain things that are similar to furries and, fursuiting and stuff like that. Because I've done that a lot before, and sometimes it's really successful, and most of the time, no one watches that shit. But then no one watches much on YouTube these days, so I don't take it personally. But one of the things I actually started to think about was puppets. And totally not because I have friends who are puppeteers who were coming down to visit and we needed to film a video, and I was like, shit, what kind of video can we film? No. Obviously, I was thinking about this independently. But it actually did make me start to think, actually, when it comes to, puppeteering and fursuiting, there's actually quite a decent bit of crossover to that. And it's not all too dissimilar. And what are those points that we could make? And could I actually get a puppet on screen to talk about those points? Yeah, I can, obviously. You saw the thumbnail before you clicked on this. You know there's a puppet in this video. But yeah, that's what we're talking about this week. So let's see if it made any sense. Let's get into it. Now, obviously, in preparation for this video on whether or not furries and puppets actually have any similarities, I thought it would be wise to seek out the puppet perspective, and that perspective comes in the form of Fhelix, a friend of mine who functions best when there is a hand deep inside him. And now that we have that very obvious fucking joke out of the way, we can actually focus on the real similarities and differences. What do you say, Fhelix? You got an opinion on all this shit?
Okay, everybody. How are puppets and furries similar? Well, Artemis, I've been thinking about how we are not that much different, you and I. Sure, you have legs, for example, and I'm just a little fuzzball perched on top of someone's arm. But there's the same spark that brings us both to existence. Size or shape or how we even move doesn't really matter. It's that we do it with intent. It makes this character breathe. And it's all about the moment when the performer's heart syncs with the characters. And that's when it stops being just foam and fur and fabric, and it starts becoming real.
Well, damn, that was a bit more heartfelt than I was anticipating. I thought we were just going to fill this thing with dick jokes, but okay, no, I can roll with that. I do think that at its heart, it's the characterization that really is the key similarity. Now, you can have a lot of other similarities along with it, like we both typically choose anthro animals, and we both typically find this sort of thing in childhood, and it grows up. But at its real core, I believe that, puppetry and fursuiting are essentially the desire to inhabit a character, and a character that you get to build. And it's just two sides of the same fluffy coin. Sometimes you want to be physically inside the character, inhabiting it, seeing through the character's eyes, and sometimes that's just not the way that you want to perform it, and you want a little bit of a difference there. Either way, it's like masking. It's finding a way to inhabit and show off and express this character in a creative way that makes you feel like you're truly performing it. Which sounds really grandiose for a bunch of people that just like to put on costumes and act like a dog, but at its core, I do think that is exactly what we're looking at. And plus, what's wrong with feeling a little grandiose? But obviously, as much as there are similarities and, the way that we perform and the way that we, like anthro animals and stuff, there's also a lot of differences. And those differences can lead to a little bit of friction from time to time. And, let's just be honest. If anybody's going to get into a fight with a puppet, it's going to be Duke. So, let's see what happened when they got into an argument, yeah?
Look, I'm saying there's a little more art to puppetry than just putting on some clothes and a hat, and then going, I'm adorable, oh, look at me, bark, 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 bark. I mean, there's intent, there is technique, and there is years of coordination between the hand and the eye.
Okay, yeah, but heat management makes it more of an endurance thing, so fursuiting is much harder.
No. See, that's the thing. The suit does the work. You just zip up and boom, instant charisma, everybody's your friend. No. Meanwhile, I am making a foam pool noodle seem to be alive. And you know what? The person that made this had spent so much time and so much elbow grease just to make it up to this.
Okay, right, but fursuit, we have paws, so it's hard to respect someone who doesn't have all the goods,
A puppet has to move. Now you can just stand there and people will be cutesy and take your picture. Hell, you can stick your head in a fucking Roomba and call it a day. And don't even get me started about line of sight. You have mesh eyes. I I have a pair of ping pong balls, and I'm playing an elaborate game of Marco Polo back here. I'm guessing where people are. It is performance by sonar.
Okay, true, but like fursuits are more complete. You know, from head to toe, we're all there, and it's hard to respect someone who doesn't even have the good. Like, where's your feet? Where's the rest of you?
Yeah, okay. I can't pick things up or rock around much. But guess what? That means nobody is asking me to move props or help me carry the lights. No, I just stand behind something, I do my bit, and boom, union break. And hey, at least I don't have to take out a mortgage to even exist. You've dropped $5,000 just to end up smelling like the inside of a hockey bag after one con. Congratulations, you are both a performer and a biohazard.
Well, all I know is that your cheap ping pong ball eyes looking ass. Fuck you. I do not give a fuck what this is about. Shut the fuck up. I do not care. You're just a fucking puppet. You know what? I need to calm down. Much better.
A lot of folks, well, they grow up with puppets. They had a lot of things taught to them with a puppet. Lessons that are just facts, some of them about, well, how to be a better person and what to do when you don't feel good. These are all things that people sometimes get right from the felted mouth. But and as you're there, that connection is made through a screen, but you see there's a genuine intent, there's earnestness, and genuinely caring, even though it's like these are ping pong balls, but it doesn't matter because the person does the work for me. And one day, they'll cross over and start looking deeper at what is making them think this way and why are they acting that way to me. And maybe they'll say, I want to do that. Puppetry can be a gateway. You start out with Kermit, and the next thing you know, you have a big old con badge with your thick-thighed persona named Claudia.
I think one of the biggest things that we saw in the UK that's sort of a crossover between the furry and the puppet stuff is Mongrels, the TV show, which was a adult-based puppet show, featuring wild animals in London. And it was fairly influential. I believe that the guys behind it actually went to Confuzzled at one point, and, I've seen people who have fursuits that are based off of characters from the show. And in terms of the humour and the themes of the furry fandom crossing over, this definitely seemed to be like the bridge between the two. It definitely seemed to be something that sort of breached into the mainstream, and I feel like there's a couple of furries, at least in the UK, that use that as their gateway into the fandom.
Puppets aren't about kid stuff either. Like Avenue Q showed that puppets can sing about rent, racism, regret, and porn with the same level of enthusiasm, caring, and, genuinely getting a message across that we do about colors, being a good person, and the concepts of near and far, okay? And, the most important thing is we have intent. We have a reason for saying what we do. And it's genuinely to make a connection. And where people forget about that, you get these really terrible movies. Like whatever that mess was with Melissa McCarthy. And also, Saturday Night Live. They had a whole season with Henson's Muppets, but nobody knew how to read or write for them, and that just was terrible. And they missed the point of us, and I think that is one of the reasons that also it's hard for furries. They miss the point of view. We both live in the space between haha silly and wait, why is this making me have feelings, or suddenly have class awareness. There is one show that did seem to get it pretty right. It was weird and meta, and it was named Greg the Bunny. They would do low-key profound things, and then they would go and do a dick and fart joke right after that. So it kept going, and it was entertaining. And basically, crossovers into media have always been there. It's just that, whatever you're saying, just simply needs saying.
I would go so far as to say that puppets is basically the next best thing that you can go for if you're not going to go for animation and still want to display something of a sort of cartoon nature with, anthro animals. Fursuits have never really breached into films or TV, not to the extent. I mean, I suppose the closest you've got is that big full-body Muppet that we see, and I'm not talking about Tim Curry. It's that sort of thing. Fursuits have just not ever really breached into that zone, and honestly, for good reason when you see some of the ones that have, because, you put a puppet or a Muppet into an IP, into a movie, and everyone sort of knows what it's supposed to look like and how it's supposed to act. You throw a fursuit into that, and we get abominations like this. I'm not saying that we need to see more of that. Hell the fuck no. Overall, I feel like when you look at these two things that seem very separate on the surface, and you look a little bit deeper, it's actually a little bit weird to me that they're not mixed as much as they perhaps should be. It feels like a lot of the key elements of performance, inhabiting a character, anthro animals and whatnot, would lead to more of a crossover that we just don't really seem to see.
No, one of the things that's kind of a tough chasm is that, masks. It's how what we do with this, right? And for furries, it's generally a single. It's a personality, maybe two, and that's good. And it's very invested. It is as a fully realized person. But for puppets, you're going to be playing several characters. You're going to be sometimes a one person entire play, and so you can invest in the character and the person, but you're also needing to literally take them on and off as quickly as you take the puppet on and off.
There are obviously a lot of limitations when it comes to fursuiting, and it can be very intimidating. I mean, I'm 6'5", but I'm almost like 7 foot with the ears and everything when I'm in suit. That's a very intimidating thing to, deal with, especially when, I'm very happy with improvisation and my character, and it can be a little bit hard for people to sort of interact with at a con. A puppet can be a bit easier on that because it's smaller and obviously, but then you still get the thing with eyeline. Like, who do you look at, the puppeteer or the puppet? I mean, if anyone has seen Avenue Q, you kind of look at both, but when it's interacting, it kind of muddies the waters a little bit. I do feel like you should see more puppets in the fandom. I feel like with fursuiting being what it is, and we all do want to actually live in the character itself when it comes to this sort of thing, it's much more intimate and, I guess, personal when you're actually wearing the thing and being the thing. But fursuiting has a lot of physical limitations to it, and not everybody has the capacity to fursuit for as long as perhaps they may wish. You have a full bodysuit with padding, and that's an endurance trial, and it feels like puppetry and having a puppet would be the way to have that character and express yourself through it without having to deal with all of those physical limitations that perhaps some people are just not able to handle.
Summation, putting us all together, it does really, honestly, it feels like, puppets and furries should have done a lot more together. I mean, we're both constructed, we're both fabricated people. We're made with an intent. Someone deliberately made us for a reason. And, we really put an effort into performing and actually having a point of view and saying things. And one of the things that I think may not make that crossoverable as much is that, you're all freaks.
Thank you very much for watching. Hopefully you enjoyed this video. It was very fun to make. It was a hell of a long day of shooting. And I really do kind of, after making this video, feel it a little bit weird that we don't see as much of a crossover. We've all seen puppets. We saw that marionette puppet that went viral at that con that time. And they still go around. And we sort of see it here and there. But it really does feel like it should be a bit of a bigger thing than it is these days. Especially when, a lot of people can't afford a fursuit and don't want to have to go out in 100-degree heat in a fucking carpet. It feels like this would be the next sort of step to doing it. But, oh well, I guess everybody's got their preference. And essentially, the furry fandom will always prioritize fursuits. And, you know, standing here in one, I have to sort of agree with that. But thank you for watching. Hope you enjoyed this. If you did want to see some more of these amazing friends of mine and their puppeteering skills, then here's some social media links that I hopefully put into a very nice little graphic for you to go and check out. Definitely check them out. It was a really fun day shooting with them. They're really good people as well. So definitely check all of that stuff out. Do it, do it, do it, do it. And once you're done checking that out, go and look at my feet, because we've also got a link tree with a bunch of links in there where you can, I mean, you can go on the Amazon wish list if you want and buy me some stuff. But if you want something back like feet pics, then that's a possibility too. Because I got to get it in there somehow, haven't I? And then there's the Patreon, obviously, which would be lovely if you took a little look at, just to help support us, help pay the bills, and you get exclusive stuff back, the Discord server and all of that jazz. I know most people have turned this video off already, no one's really sitting around here, so yeah. Thanks for sticking around if you have. You're probably just waiting for YouTube to autoplay the next video. And I dropped my phone. See, look, if you stick around, you get to see outtakes like that, because how the fuck am I picking that back up again? Let's find out. But thanks for watching, I guess, and I'll see you next week, which is probably going to be another puppet video. Bye!